Welcome to part 2 on our chapter of personal stress management. We're going to get right into this. I have added some additional content here just to help you out with some stress management strategies. All right, now, let's look at the type of stressors that exist. And we're going to start with student stress. You probably already are aware. I like this about our textbook, is that it keeps a student focus, and we're going to honor that in these videos. As we are aware, being a student can be stressful, and stresses are remarkably similar among students. Among the most common stressors, test pressures, academic failure, financial problems, and friendships and dating relationships, daily hassles, there's that term again, pressures from as a result of competition and deadlines, and losses linked to breakups of relationships or death of a loved one. Now, some of you may have experienced some or many of these. Certainly the daily hassles, as you can appreciate, but this might be, over some time, have some negative effects on the way that you've expressed yourself or how you participate as a student. In one Canadian study, researchers found that the highest stresses experienced by students were self-imposed and were related to specific stretches such as a personal desire to compete and win, or the need to be noticed by others. Now, you can probably see between the lines that the ability to compete and to win or to be noticed really aren't academic pursuits. And yet this is something that students today have that is higher level of stress than what was seen in the past. It's curious that it's not an academic stress, but it affects much. And it affects one's academic performance. Many students bring complex psychosocial problems with them to campus. Students aren't simple. They're complex beings. This might be apparent. Maybe you're carrying a job or two, your academic responsibilities, of course. And then there may be other issues, mental health issues, family issues, and so much more. Complex psychologically than perhaps in the past. This also includes such issues as learning disabilities, mood disorders such as depression, social anxiety, a history of some family issues, and some indigenous communities where young people have been dealt with higher rates of suicide and grief over multiple losses and disruptions in lifestyle. All of this can contribute to making academia much more challenging than maybe it ought to be. As educational people, we need to be much more focused on this, and it's part of the reason why academic environments like Georgian College has student services to help students with many of these issues. Students have expressed that they have reacted to stress physiologically, emotionally, or behaviorally and cognitively. So that certainly shows the roundedness of the impact of stress can have. Social supports and effective time management. These I've mentioned in my own lifestyle management orientation video about how important time management is in reducing levels of stress. Forgetting to do things and then finding out later they were to be done is something we as individuals have control over. Students between the ages of 18 and 25 must also deal with this period of life of emerging adulthood stage. It's important to be aware that the brain may not always grasp the long-term consequences of one's own actions. Now, that's not a negative point being brought out about young people. It's part of the growth and the development that occurs within young adults. This growing awareness of that what I do today has an impact on me tomorrow, in 20 years, in 30 years, and in 40 years. So becoming more aware of of this sort of awareness of what I do today affects me tomorrow can have a huge impact. We haven't always been aware of that level of impact, that our current choices have in our future. It causes a great deal of stress for some people. So let's look at some of the other stressors that can be part, not just of students, but of all people's lives. And we'll start with the first one in your text, which is financial stress. These are the things that students experience regarding finding, funding to attend school, that's your tuitions, book, place to live, food. These are the stressors for many students. They can include the management of financial educational demands, such as taking advantage of bursaries. They're there, and very few students apply for them. They sit there, money waiting for someone to use it. However, there are very few applications for them, so please check the URL I've put up there and check to see if there's one there for you. Working during the summer, budgeting, using credit cards wisely. I've heard of students who have as many as 10 credit cards. Those come with responsibilities, and unfortunately, they become very big and unwieldy down the road. Being resourceful, planning loan prepayments, and being frugal. These are all skill sets that complications and the complications of a student life, and all of which can impact your academic experience. You'll find additional points in your text, although US based, it's still relevant for Canada. Academic stressors. Academic stress, things like essays, papers, projects, tests, and exams. Now, here's one that many people experience, and it's not just an uncommon one, an uncommon one for students, and it's test stress. For many students, tests, midterms, and final exams are the most stressful time of the year. Studies at various colleges and universities have found that the incidence of colds and flus soared during the final exam period. Now, that's not because people are making up excuses to try to get out of writing tests. One, that doesn't generally work. College policies doesn't allow for that. But two, it shows the implication of stress on the immune system, that you can't defend against the flu and colds as easily under exam stress. Students can experience a dip in their immune functioning and a higher rate of infections. So it shows that there can be a direct relationship between not managing our stress and our immune system. Students most susceptible to exam stress are those who believe they'll do poorly and who see tests as extremely threatening. Now, again, it's good to emphasize that I can remind you how important one's self-talk is. Take out a piece of paper and write down the things that you would say to yourself at the onset of a test or due date. This will give you some tip as to what might you be able to do to combat that kind of thinking. Now, one of the ways is to diffuse stress. It's through relaxation, such as controlled breathing, meditation, progressive relaxation, guided imagery, and yoga. Now, one approach that I use, is that it's what's called 5-5-5 breathing technique. This is a strategy that can help distract and reduce anxiety and stress because it has a specific function. What you do is you count to 5 slowly while inhaling. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as an inhale. Hold your breath for a count of 5, counting slowly. And then down. Exhale for the count of 5, slowly. And do this 5 times. There are a few things happening here. 1, it slows your breathing down. 2, it gives you more oxygenated blood. Oxygenated blood going through to your brain to enable your brain to work more fully and completely. 3, it's a distracting technique. It's distracting your brain from thinking about what's on your mind by focusing on counting and giving it an opportunity to slow down. That's only one strategy. Excuse me. There are many, and I'll review toward the ends of this video some other strategies to begin preparing for midterms and finals and papers early in order to transform stress into resiliency. Now, I've mentioned in my orientation video that then this is to look at mapping out your schedule by putting everything into calendars, keeping track of things, not just putting in your due dates, but putting in your start dates so that you can get started early. That way you can get started early, and having your textbook and putting in your notes, together, highlight, using sticky notes, they're all things that can help you prepare for exams and getting your work done. It certainly makes a huge difference in reducing the stresses. Another stressor that can be experienced, and not just by students, and that's relationship stress. Some students recognize the relationship breakups are quite common, and as young people move from adolescence to young and middle adulthood, they may address their challenges by talking to their family or to their friends, or taking advantage of visiting the counselors that exist within the college system, or even exercising or praying in an effort to move forward from an experience. So you can see, that some students do and can see the value of physical exercise, the spiritual and the social element about their lives to help with stress management. Other students find themselves dealing with the complicated grief. Now, this is an intense and extended period of grief. This is also often linked to the loss or death of a family member, friends, or an acquaintance, even, of course, a partner relationship. So it's really important that the complexity, the key characteristics include disbelief, anger, bitterness, recurrent and intrusive thoughts that just keep infiltrating whatever else you're trying to do. They are intense yearnings and preoccupations of thoughts of the person that we were involved with, thus making the relationship stress very encompassing. The next stress we can look at as a source of stress is that of discrimination. Discrimination can take many forms, some subtle, some much more blatant, and some even as extreme in terms of violence. Since it can be hard to deal with individually, discrimination is a particularly sinister form of stress. For many people in the last decade, there have been many reports of intolerance among young people and greater tolerance for overt expression and acts of hatred on campuses and universities at a higher rate than has been seen in the past. In more recent study, researchers have found that classroom interventions, even when supported by experimental learning outside of the classroom, LGBTQ was not sufficient to change homophobic beliefs. What they're getting at here is it wasn't just that you need to read about homophobic discrimination, but you need to be out and experiencing this with other people of greater diversity to learn and to better understand the issues. Indigenous students don't see themselves in the culture reflected in the curriculum that's offered in today's schools. It's growing and it's getting better. Very frequently as well, there are not enough positive role models in the academic and educational system for a more diverse group to be able to see. They do exist, but in relationship to the number of Indigenous people, not nearly enough. Next, we'll look at environmental stressors that can affect people. Natural disasters such as blizzards, earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, volcanoes, and man-made disasters such as climate change, chemical spills, nuclear reactor meltdowns, oil spills, wars, all cause stress. These are environmental stressors, and they can leave deep psychological scars, especially within any school system. Certainly in Canada, with people from all around the world who may have families who exist in parts of the world where some of these environmental stressors are occurring. Next, the most commonly occurring psychological effect reported 1 year after the terrorist attack at the World Trade Center in New York was post-traumatic stress disorder. Other psychological problems associated with terrorism can include high levels of anxiety, deep sadness, fear, irritability, anger, sleep disorders, and difficulty concentrating. Researchers suggest that we need to be specifically watchful for the mental health consequences of mass violence, as it can have an effect on families and entire communities for generations. Next, we'll touch on another area of stress, and it's been more recent only because we've been able to identify these learning challenges and illnesses in other areas, and in another area of stressors. Minor illnesses and, to a greater extent, chronic diseases can increase stress. A common source of stress for many college and university students is a learning disability. One, it's invisible. You don't see it. And so people can't see it, so they don't always believe that somehow it doesn't really exist. That level, not believing, or that level of not understanding, can cause an awful lot of stress for those living with the learning issues. There are many more services and supports in today's post-secondary environments aimed at a wide variety of learning needs, learning disabilities, study strategies, counseling services, technology supports. Things have gotten better. They still have a ways to go. Now, another stress which has been emerging is one that's known as techno-stress. Now, you may not have been familiar with this, but technostress is the modern disease of the adaptation caused by people's inability to manage the new computer technologies in a healthy way. Affected individuals experience either a feeling of anxiety or mental pressure resulting from struggles to either embrace computer technology or stress from the overexposure to computer technology. You've probably experienced it to yourself to some degree. Cell phones, pagers, laptops, electronic tablets all have resulted in our personal and professional lives becoming intertwined. You know, the idea where you don't feel you can go on holidays without still checking your emails just to make sure everything's okay. This is all part of techno-stress. Symptoms include brain overload, frustration, feeling overwhelmed, having a sense that things never are finished. Video gaming has become pervasive, and internet gambling is also very worrisome in terms of the stress that it can bring, not just in terms of the access through the internet means, but the loss of money. And the risk of that loss of money can all have a great deal of stress associated with it. Now, the last sort of stress type we can look at, it's not limited to the ones that we've talked about, but we can add workplace stress. Many people find that they are working more and enjoying it less. The workplace itself can contribute to stress. Whether that's in the amount of time that we're at work, the level of work that we're expected to do in the same amount of time that we've done it in the past, can all affect us in terms of stress. Work itself is not usually hazardous to the health. Attitudes about work and our habits related to how to work are all the true threats. Now, finally, We can move towards solutions to stress. Stress survival. Sometimes we respond to stress or challenges with a self-destructive behavior, such as maybe we drink too much or we're using drugs too much. Borrowing from psychology, we can look at what are known as defense mechanisms. These are psychological devices that are based on Freud's work. They are groups of other responses to stresses that we engage in. Now, some of these are healthier than others, and you'll find them in your textbook that will give you just a little heads up. The key to coping with stress is realizing that your perception, that really it's your perception. Do you see the stressor as something that you can influence or is solvable or not? It's your response. What can you do? What don't you do? What the stressor is are crucial to your ability to solve it. Changing the way you interpret events or situations, a skill called reframing, will make all the difference. What's important here isn't so much I'm going to come back to this event and it's going to a little bit later and it'll be all better. No, it's not the event. It's going to happen. The event is going to happen. The test is going to happen. The assignment needs to be handed in. These events are going to occur. It's our reaction or our response to these events that affect our outcome. We're going to come back to that, so hold that thought in your head. To reframe, or to reframing, it's about looking at an event from a different perspective to see how else can this be seen. That will help make a difference in solving a problem. In order to manage our unique and individual stresses, we need to be willing to recognize what is disruptive and unbalanced, how we feel physically and emotionally when it happens. This is where journaling can come in to provide a very big help in ways of finding and regaining equilibrium. When life presents unexpected challenges, it can help to lower the stress levels. There are a variety of simple exercises that can help, that can stop stress building up. Deep breathing. Remember I suggested the 5-5-5. Refocusing. Focusing our minds to focus on other areas. So rather than getting bogged down on something that is really bothering you, take a moment and think about something else that's refocusing. Take a stillness break. Bring moments of tranquility into your day. Now that sounds like a little odd. You don't have to go remember the gratitude journal. I mentioned that if you're interested, please let me know and I can email you some information and resources on gratitude journals. So it seems like it shouldn't be so hard, and yet sometimes it is, and that's relaxation. Physical and mental state, the opposite of stress. Relaxation techniques can be inclusive of progressive relaxation, visualizations, meditation, mindfulness, and biofeedback. Now, the progressive relaxation, it works by intentionally increasing and decreasing tension in our muscles. Now, I'm going to post this in this week's folder, a little tip sheet on how to do a progressive relaxation. Essentially, you find a place to lie down and then follow the instructions. Now, you could sit in a chair as well, as long as you're comfortable and relaxed. Then, when you're relaxed, contract your muscles and then relax them, starting at your feet, moving slowly up through your body. Visualization or guided imagery, well, this involves creating visual or mental pictures that calm you down and focus your mind. For me, there's a spot in Algonquin Park. I've been to it several times. It's where I discovered it about 35 years ago. And I went canoeing through Algonquin Park, stumbled on this place to camp. And it was on a large sloping rock, a campsite on the bit of the top of the rock. But the rock had received the day's heat all day, so the rock was warm. The night was so dark. The sound of the loons, the light of the stars in the night, the warmth of that rock, it was just that for me is visualization. For me, that puts me in a much more calm and relaxed state. Meditation, well, that's been practiced in many forms over the ages, and it can help a person reach a state of relaxation. There's no right way to meditate. I'm not very good at just sitting in one place and being still, so I have a meditation that I can do while I'm walking. Meditation isn't about not thinking. It's about letting things go in and let it go right out. Don't focus on any one thought. Allow it to go in and out. Mindfulness, well, this is becoming a very popular in the last few years. It's a modern day form of a really ancient Asian technique that involves maintaining awareness in the present moment. Mindfulness keeps you in the here and now, thinking only about what is rather than what should be or what could be. It's about being present in the moment. It's a lot like meditation, but it's a slightly different strategy. Biofeedback has been with us for a long time. It's a method of obtaining feedback or information about our physiological activity occurring in our body. The goal of stress reduction is a state of tranquility, usually associated with brain production of brain waves, particularly of alpha waves. Measuring alpha waves, delta waves, and theta waves is what the machine will do. And the idea was to try to produce more alpha waves. So they have all sorts of things that they can have they watch on a monitor, and you can see these waves going by, and you look for the alpha wave and do what you can to raise the wave. So you'd be surprised how easy it is to actually elevate your alpha wave. It's not like you sort of turned on a button or turned a dial, but you start to become aware of how to produce the change and to produce a response of calmness. Lastly, this is something that we probably all have a little bit of, and it's overcoming procrastination. Putting off until tomorrow what should be done today is a habit that creates a great deal of stress for a lot of people, including students. It also takes a surprising toll on us. That's why I remind everyone in the orientation video that there are no extensions. It's a request that I get frequently on due dates and times. For tests and assignments and journals, missing deadlines is the most often result of time management issues. 3 most common types of procrastination include putting off unpleasant things, putting off difficult tasks, putting off tough decisions. To get out of procrastination trap, keep track of the tasks you're most likely to put off. Think of alternative ways to complete these tasks. One of the strategies is that you do the least favorite thing first. That's a strategy that I do. If I have 5 things ahead of me to do, the thing I don't like to do, I don't want to wait for it, and I don't want to wait for it for a long time. I want to do it first. You can concentrate on the tasks you enjoy after. Now, this isn't a complete list of how to overcome procrastination, but a lot of the things that we chatted about and highlighted and your textbook include things that you can do to reduce stress. By reducing stress, you might see the value of getting things done. Balancing taking breaks, assigning yourself tasks like breaking down your day into manageable tasks. Perhaps procrastination may not become an issue that works against you. Now, how about a nap? Well, more specifically, sleep, and how can it help combat stress? More specifically, again, the lack of sleep. Research may not know the role of dreaming or how much sleep is best, just that sleep is necessary. Not getting enough sleep over time, your body will just shut down. Check the image beside me. Students generally need between 7 and 10 hours of sleep per night, depending on your age. Important to note, you cannot bank or make up sleep. It's not how our bodies work. If you only get 2 hours of sleep, you can't sleep 15 hours the next day and make up the difference. It just doesn't work that way. We have a circadian rhythm. It lives in our brain, and it's our 24-hour clock. And as you can see in the image that I put beside me here, that this is an unconscious activity. It's our bodily shifts and changes that prepare us to sleep and prepare us to wake up. Now, you can mess with your circadian rhythm by sleeping much less or being awake much more. Even if you work on shifts, you'll notice your circadian rhythm will get upset. Now, along with sleep, there are 5 stages of sleep that we typically experience, all of which aid in a healthy restorative sleep. Now, you can check your text for a breakdown of each step. Although it is restorative, it is also helpful for our body's physically and mental health. This list is a few of the things that restorative sleep can do for you. Cardiovascular health, immunity and cancer prevention, insomnia, learning and memory, weight and metabolism, safety, sleep apnea, are all things that can be part of an issue, but certainly can protect us from some of these things. Sleep is necessary. Well, I hope you have found this chapter helpful. I enjoy it as it reminds me of things I need to do for myself. All right, everybody, good luck and keep up the hard work. I hope your assignment is going well and getting all your data collected. And I hope you're starting to see even just a little bit of some movement about where you wanted to go with your goal. Remember, this assignment isn't about fulfilling and achieving a goal. It is about building momentum. All right, everybody, good luck, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye now.